What it do, cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, here for another episode of Hater Outdoors, motherfuckers. Hater Outdoors. Now, it would behoove me to take a moment to thank everyone once again, especially people that have been giving me donations. Don't think I don't notice, and don't think that your requests are going in vain. You know what I'm saying? As the Hater has said previously, this was never about the money, but the Hater loves the money, motherfuckers. Do it for the money. She just want that money, you know what I'm saying? Like Travis Porter said back in the day. Now, with all that being said, let's get to today's video. It's going to be another edition of my pseudo-series, Wrestling and Race, all right? Wrestling and Race, Wrestling and Racism, call it what you want. Today's topic is Latinos and Asians. Now, one of the most beautiful things about wrestling, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, is the racial diversity that we get, right? More importantly than the racial diversity is the general diversity that we get. We get all sorts of characters, right? But here's the problem. The problem is that for some strange reason, while white wrestlers and black wrestlers can have discernible gimmicks that sometimes have nothing to do with their race, right? Asians and Latinos seem to always be held down by the stereotypes that their race, is known for, I suppose, right? Through the eyes of racists. Now, some of this is good, right? Because as a result of this, we got the several Eddie Guerrero characters, which obviously were all excellent, right? You know, the lecherous Latino lover, the abusive Latino boyfriend, lie, cheat, and steal, you know, like the lazy, like I don't want to work for it, so I'm going to cheat Latino stereotype. All of them, you know what I mean? Eddie Guerrero played it to a T. He's one of the GOATs for that reason. Probably the best, like, wrestler to do gimmicks, right? Like, he's probably the best one. It's either him or The Undertaker, but Eddie Guerrero just knocked it out of the park with everything, you know what I mean? He even played a luchador. But beyond him, there aren't many examples of Latino wrestlers. In fact, I can only think of one, Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio, right? He's the only other Latino wrestler whose gimmick wasn't that he was Hispanic, right? And in many ways, Eddie Guerrero's gimmick, as I just established, was that he was Hispanic, right? And even Del Rio, he had this, like, Mexican aristocrat thing going for him, right? But that's fine. We can consider that to be what he actually was. Just basically Mexican JBL, which is a discernible gimmick, right? The fact that he also happens to be Mexican is not especially important in his presentation. But then if you look at everybody else, it's basically, hi, I'm a Latino. That's literally every gimmick, right? All of them, like the entire LWO, all the women, right? Like Zelina Vega, fucking, who else? Who else is a Latina woman wrestler, right? Man, I can't think of any right now, but you understand the point, you know? Now, black people and white people have the privilege, and I will concede, it's mostly white people. A lot of black people do get saddled with the, hi, I'm a black guy gimmick, right? But white people, white wrestlers, get this boost, right? They get this, I hate to call it a white privilege, but that's what it is, essentially, right? So, like, if you're a white guy in wrestling, you can be generic white guy like Dolph Ziggler or Nathan Frazier, but you can also be, you know, Stone Cold, right? You can have, like, a white people gimmick, like a, you know, like a white trash redneck, right? But at least that's like a gimmick that you have, right? Or you can also have like a gimmick like Elias, right? You could just be a guy who plays the guitar, you know? Like, you never see like a black guy playing the Elias gimmick, right? But you do see black people having some sort of gimmicks that go beyond their race, right? So, for example, the Hurt business is a great example, right? Yeah, they're all black, but that's not important to the gimmick, right? They're just supposed to be these like tough guys that are all about the business, you know what I mean? They're there to make money and kick ass, right? That's the presentation of the gimmick. MVP is another one, right? By himself. You know, he's supposed to be this like premier elite athlete, right? Who's like overvalued, basically, right? A pretty interesting gimmick, if you ask me, right? Mark Henry's the world's strongest man, but that's just because he happens to be the world's strongest man, etc., etc. But for some reason, the Asians and the Latinos never get this push, right? Now, I think that I have explained the problem, but I also think that I have the answer as to why this is, right? The primary reason is because unlike Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, who have obviously had incredibly successful WWE careers where they've played several gimmicks between the two. Rey Mysterio's only had one. He's just like the ultimate luchador, right? He is lucha libre, right? But why wouldn't you run with that gimmick if you are that dude, right? Like, he's not, you know, he's not Axiom. He's not fucking Sin Cara, right? He literally is the best at what he does. If you're the best at what you do, then of course you play whatever gimmick makes you the best, right? So For example, if like there was some Japanese wrestler who was like the best martial artist or the best strong style wrestler, that would be their gimmick and they would just knock it out of the park. But we don't see that, right? All the Asian wrestlers and a lot of the Latino wrestlers, except for Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, and it's not a coincidence, right? A lot of these people don't speak English, right? What do Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero have in common? They both speak perfect English. You know what I mean? Now, there are other ones, right? I believe Kalisto spoke English, but, you know, he never got the chance, right? So some people do fall through the cracks. But generally speaking, the Latino wrestlers and the Asian wrestlers are never going to get the level of exposure and the level of push that they may deserve otherwise, right? Because they are hampered by one significant handicap, which is the language barrier. Now, some of them I understand, right? If someone hires you, if WWE hires you to be Ikemen Jiro, right? You're just like, oh, there's like this Ikemen culture in Japan, and that's all you are. You don't need to learn English. Like, you're never going to be anybody anyways, right? But if you are, let's say, Nakamura, right? The first thing you want to do as soon as you get hired, or Asuka, or someone that's being signed to be a star, to be someone of relevance, the first thing you want to do is you sit your ass down, you get a Rosetta Stone, and you start doing the best you can to learn English. Because then sky is the limit, right? Nakamura has a certain presentation to him. Nakamura, jokes aside, I say he has no charisma. He is charismatic when he delivers the promos, right? But they have him do it in Japanese, and people cannot connect to that because fundamentally it shows two things. Number one, the barrier itself makes it so I have to fucking look at subtitles to connect to this guy. No, right? And two, I hate to say it, it shows a lack of effort, right? I'll tell you this, motherfuckers. If I moved to Mexico today, right? I'm an immigrant. The haters' first language is not English. Granted, I moved to the United States when I was young, but if I moved to Mexico or Brazil today, in 10 years, I would be like a writer in Portuguese or in Spanish. You know what I'm saying? I would do my best to learn the language. And I'm not even a wrestler, right? Now, this is relevant because there are some people, like a lot of people got angry, not angry, but a lot of people reacted to me saying that Carmelo Hayes is better than Andrade. And it got me thinking, I'm like, why is Carmelo Hayes better than Andrade? Well, he has some certain attributes that are better. For example, he's younger, he's got a better physique, except he's short too, so like that doesn't really help him, right? But more importantly, and most importantly, Carmelo Hayes is capable of cutting a promo because he speaks English. That's the primary differentiator. Andrade has all the tools that one would think one needs to become a star, right? Think about that. Andrade is obviously a good-looking guy, right? Depending on the month, he has a pretty good physique, right? And he's obviously good in the ring and he's athletic. So he's got all the things that matter. Now the problem is, his character is he's this good-looking guy from Mexico who comes around, smiles like an idiot while wearing sunglasses and fixes his suit. You know, so it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just follow you in now with the Finn Balor's of the world, with the JD McDonough's of the world, the people that cannot entertain me aside from what they do in the ring. And as we have established on this channel dozens of times at this point, it's not about what you do in the ring, right? Rey Mysterio is an exception, but Rey Mysterio is underrated on the mic. Think about that for a second, right? Let's look at Rey Mysterio as a case study real quick, right? A lot of people are like, oh, Rey Mysterio got lucky. No, motherfucks. You compare Rey Mysterio's physique to that of any other luchador, and Rey Mysterio has the better physique. Yeah, he's like 5'1", but he is jacked as shit, right? He understands, because he's an intelligent person, that the aesthetics matter, right? It's not enough to just wear a mask. If you just wear a mask, you could end up being Kalisto. But if you wear a mask, you get jacked, you do innovative moves, and when necessary, you play a character. Rey Mysterio, despite the fact that his presentation doesn't require him to play any characters or ever cut a promo, he has done that, right? He has had memorable feuds against Cucky Rhodes, against CM Cuck, right? He's had plenty of feuds where he has had to emote with Eddie Guerrero, etc., right? He has had these moments where he gets betrayed and he can go and cut a promo if necessary. Now, he's not Bubba Ray Dudley or John Cena on the mic, but he's good enough, right? He's better, motherfucks, than, let's say, Nakamura and also Andrade, right? Now, let's just stop the buck there for a second and use these three people for our analysis, right? Rey Mysterio is better than Andrade, and he's better than Nakamura at promos. I don't think anybody can deny that because Rey Mysterio actually speaks English, so he actually can go cut a promo. Now, you would think, oh, but what about everything else? It just so happens that Rey Mysterio is also better than them at everything else, right? He also understood, oh shit, I can't look like shit, right? So he looks jacked. Oh shit, motherfucks, I can't be terrible in the ring. So he's amazing in the ring, right? You see what I'm saying? If you have someone like Rey Mysterio on the roster that's dominating you in every possible category, right? What argument can there be to, oh, this guy's not getting pushed? You know, what is the argument? Oh, Andrade's not getting pushed. Why should he get pushed? He offers nothing. He's basically Nathan Frazier. He's basically Finn Balor. He's basically Apollo Crews, except for the fact that Apollo Crews had that awesome stint as Intercontinental Champion where he had like a Nigerian accent all of a sudden. That was great, by the way. But the point is, motherfuckers, the Asians and the Latinos are only hired in terms of tokenization, right? Nobody ever thought that Hideo Itami comes out. I'm hearing about this guy being the best wrestler in the world. He comes out, he's like 5'6", he's chubby, he doesn't have a muscle on him, and he can't speak English. So what the fuck am I gonna get behind? Oh, he does the GTS once in a while, and he has a double stomp finisher? Well, we saw how that worked out. Finn Balor came in and just took the thunder right up under him. Because Finn Balor, even though Finn Balor basically doesn't speak English in the context of wrestling because he never cuts a promo, right? At the very least, he looks better than Hideo Itami, right? He's chiseled out of stone, you know what I mean? This guy's like cut as fuck, right? And he has a little, he puts paint on him, so, we like that, we've decided, right? But you understand what I'm saying? The problem is that they don't try to hire Japanese, mostly Japanese, there's a few Chinese people now, but it's mostly Japanese wrestlers and Hispanic wrestlers, mostly Mexicans, of course, right? They don't try to hire these people with the intention of, I'm going to make them a star. And when they do, it's evident, right? Like Del Rio, like you just see Del Rio, you see his debut, you see everything, and you know that this guy is destined for greater things than Carlito. You know that he's destined for more than Sin Cara. You know that he's destined for more than Rush in AEW, right? You know that these other guys basically add nothing, right? Now, some of the smart wrestlers, like Pentagon and Asuka, they understood, oh shit, maybe I can't learn English at a pace that's fast enough, right? To at least give people the assurances that I know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna go crazy, right? Pentagon has this crazy look, right? He does a little armbar thing where he breaks people's arms. Asuka just goes nuts. She's like, nobody's ready for Asuka, right? And it's like, all right, like we get it, but at the same time, I appreciate that shit because she's like, oh, like I can't speak, right? I can't do like a Bianca Belair or the Charlotte Flair, but I can do something else. I can make myself interesting in other ways. And there just aren't enough people. Now, I think the primary reason for that is because these wrestlers don't aspire to be WWE champion. A lot of them, like, I don't think Andrade ever thought, I'm going to be a WWE champion, like realistically speaking, right? Because it's never going to happen. Like, how can you be the top guy in a company when you don't speak the language that is required, right? And that's the thing, right? Look at Damian Priest. He's a great example. Damian Priest is obviously a Latino, right? He's like from Puerto Rico, motherfucks, right? And look at him. He understands. He's trying to cut a promo. He's not good at it, right? Not everyone's going to be good at it, right? But he's trying. He at least speaks English. And look at him. He's world heavyweight champion, right? Nobody, I think, no serious person would argue that Damian Priest, when he was signed, people thought that his ceiling was going to be higher than Nakamura's. Absolutely not, right? Everyone thought Nakamura was going to main event WrestleMania, and he didn't, right? He was a jobber, and now he's basically not even there anymore, right? So the idea is this. If you're a foreign wrestler, right, you can blame it on racism, and obviously that's part of it too, right? I'm sure Vince McMahon or even Triple H thinks, I don't know if Americana can gather behind, certainly not behind an Asian, maybe a Latino because there's a lot of Latinos in America. So like, but an Asian, like a foreigner, it's a little bit weird, right? So maybe they think that, and that is racist, but you cannot blame it on that. You have to look at the totality of the circumstances, as we say in the law, right? And the totality of the circumstances suggests that almost every wrestler who is Asian or Latino has at least one significant shortcoming, right? And the ones that don't clearly do well, right? The ones that don't clearly have a higher ceiling, right? We're just waiting now for the Asian wrestler that can speak perfect English so he or she can come in and dominate, right? And do what they're supposed to do because they can get over, right? We've seen people like Nakamura get over with their theme song alone, right? But the point is that has a barrier, right? It's the Joe Hendry barrier. Everybody likes Joe Hendry, right? And I'm not saying that that Joe Hendry sucks, but he's another sing-along guy, right? So it's like, if you expect him to do better than, let's say, Fandango, then you're gravely mistaken because he doesn't have any attributes that Fandango didn't have. Fandango is equally charismatic. Fandango had an equally catchy theme song. Fandango is equally or better looking, right? Fandango is probably more athletic. So it's like, if Fandango didn't make it, why would Joe Hendry make it, right? Oh, Fandango had a silly name. Yeah, he did, but he had a silly gimmick. Joe Hendry also has a silly gimmick. So I don't see why people would expect this guy to be the next big thing, right? There are a few wrestlers out there that can do it all. But for some reason, WWE is not interested in these people. Like, I was watching the TNA pay-per-view, and I was reminded at how awesome Moose is. Moose has all the qualities, motherfucks. Moose has all the qualities. The only quality he doesn't have, and that's why he'll never be like a John Cena, is that he's not a good-looking guy, right? But he is a big guy. He is a strong guy. He's awesome in the ring. He does power moves and cool shit. He can cut a decent promo, right? He looks believable. He's got every other attribute, right? And, the whole good-looking thing, like, that's just, that's how God plays it out, right? Some people are good-looking, some people aren't, right? Nothing wrong with that, motherfucks. But the point is, you can do the best you can. Like, Moose knows, like, if he's an intelligent person, which I suspect that he is, he knows he's never going to have a Randy Orton career, right? Few people are going to have a Randy Orton career, right? People are like, well, Dolph Ziggler's a good-looking guy. Yeah, not on a Randy Orton level, not on a marketable level, right? Because there's a lot of women, like, for example, when I watched wrestling at this bar once, and Dolph Ziggler came out, and all the women started booing, and I was like, what the fuck, that's weird, because he's supposed to be this, like, playboy, good-looking guy, right? But they're like, yeah, he's too girly. He's got straight blonde hair, right? Randy Orton is masculine, on the other hand. The Rock is masculine. So when people see them, they're like, that's a good-looking guy. He's masculine. He's cool. He's got the moves. He's got everything, right? So it's no surprise at all why, for example, The Rock is The Rock, and why people are saying MJF is the next big thing. He's not the next big thing because he's not good-looking enough, right? And people, for some reason, refuse to accept this. I think a lot of men are afraid because they're like, oh, I don't understand if a guy's good-looking. Bullshit. Yes, you do. You all know, for example, that Brad Pitt is a good-looking guy. You all know that the guy that plays Creed, I forget his name, is a good-looking guy. Like, there's no doubt about it, right? And these are the things, these are the qualities that wrestlers need to get super over. Randy Orton has never been one to be great on the mic, right? In fact, aside from the it factor and presence and charisma, the most important factor is to be aesthetically pleasing. So, that's another thing that goes against the Japanese and the Mexican wrestlers because they don't hire the aesthetically pleasing ones. They hire Mexicans who wear masks, and they hire Japanese people who are goofy, right? When they hire Del Rio, who's obviously a good-looking guy, it pans out well. Damian Priest is a good-looking guy, despite the fact that he wears eyeshadow, right? It pans out well, right? It's not a coincidence, motherfuckers. It's not a coincidence. Very few wrestlers have the capacity to get it done without that attribute. You can almost think of none, right? You can almost think of zero wrestlers that have not been good looking and have had prolonged success, right? Like, the only example really is like The Undertaker, right? But as we've established many times before, The Undertaker is a different level, right? Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, these are not great looking guys. I don't think anybody can deny that, right? But everybody else is good looking in one way or another, right? Like, I know people might be thinking, oh, JBL's not good looking. Yeah, he is. He's got that, like, that presidential, that Kennedy, like, thing going for him, right? Especially when he's JBL. Like, women in their 40s are gonna love JBL. They're gonna be like, that's a good looking, that's a man, right? That's another thing. You need to be a man, motherfucks, because there's plenty of good-looking guys. Like Adam Cole's a good-looking guy, but he's tiny. So the point is, you need to be good-looking. And for some reason, the Japanese wrestlers, they don't want to hire good-looking Japanese guys. There's plenty of them, I'm sure. Okada is a decent-looking dude. I mean, he needs to, like, work out a little bit, but Nakamura ain't going to get it done. He's not going to get the women excited, right? And you need people to get the women excited. Likewise, for the women wrestlers, you need the men to get excited, right? And when the Japanese women that are presented to me are Asuka, who I'm not saying she's a pig, right? But she's not a very attractive woman by the standards of wrestling. In real life, I'm sure she's very good looking, but, in the context of wrestling, she's not, like, as attractive as Mariah May, right? Likewise with the Hispanic women, you get like Thunder Rosa here and there. When you have people like Ivelisse Velez, and you're like, why isn't this woman been signed? She's like very attractive, and she can get things done in the ring too, but I digress. The point is, clearly WWE, I don't think it's about racism. I think it's about maybe this other form of quasi-racism where they don't want these people to get over. There's no other explanation, you know what I mean? There's no other explanation. Like, if you really think about the facts, right? It's like Zelina Vega is not a bad-looking girl, no doubt about it, right? But Ivelisse Velez is like 100 times better looking, right? Why don't they hire Ivelisse Velez? Why didn't they hire her? For what reason, right? For what reason are they picking these like mid-level wrestlers and mid-level men and women, right? We want to see exceptional things. We want to see badassery, right? And these are the things that unfortunately in the wrestling pool, right, are not overrepresented with Asian and Latino wrestlers. But that's by design, I feel like, right? Because you had like in, what's it called? In Lucha Underground, the guy like Mil Muertes, right? That guy is just, I don't know what he looks like under the mask, but he's just a big hoss. You know what I'm saying? Like, that guy could get over, right? Imagine putting him against luchadors, and he's like, luchadors are weak now, right? He just spears the shit out of them, right? Like, that would be awesome. but they don't want to do that, right? They'd much rather hire another Sin Cara and tell you it's Rey Mysterio, and then realize that it's not, and then sign back Rey Mysterio. You know what I mean? So that's the problem right there. I don't think it's a racism thing, but I think it's a racial thing, motherfucks. And that's been your video, cucks.